You always hear everybody saying, summer is where all the work happens. I just got to grind in the dark so I can shine in the light. No days off. Every hockey player has heard this. That's all cool, but let me ask you something. What are you trying to build this offseason? I feel like most hockey players treat the offseason like it's punishment. I'm not good enough. I got to fix this. I got to fix that. I got to grind and outwork everybody. More reps are going to equal more results. But here's the problem. You're grinding in the wrong direction right now. Well, maybe you are. I'm not sure, but a lot of players do. And a lot of players end up digging their way into deeper confusion instead of gaining clarity. The offseason isn't necessarily about how hard you work. It's about how smart, how aligned, and how aware you are while you're working. Because the only thing that actually matters this offseason is if you actually get better, not that you worked hard. Maybe working hard will lead you to getting better, but it's not a guarantee. And a lot of times players work really hard on things that make them actually worse, which pull them away from what they should be working on. You'll watch a player who spends the whole offseason grinding away at his skating, but doing really inefficient technique or doing it slow motion because he's trying to perfect his mechanics. And then you get to the end of the offseason and he can't do it at top speed. So what was the point? This is where the levels of thinking in hockey come in. I broke this down last season. I'm going to break this down again in the offseason. So when you look at the levels of awareness or the levels of thinking in hockey, you can kind of call it awareness or thinking because it kind of combines both of them together. But every player exists somewhere in this spectrum. And oftentimes what happens is we think at different levels, at different times, about different skills. Like, for example, maybe we're thinking at a high level when it comes to our hockey IQ, but we're not thinking at a high level in terms of our stick handling, or our shooting, or our skating, or our battling. So you want to realize that you have the levels here, and you also have lines. So you want to think of these lines of development basically as how far you've progressed for each area. So you might have skating here, or shooting, or passing, or battling, or hands, or IQ. So when you think about the levels, you want to think that at each area, you're going to have a different level of thinking, and notice where you need to elevate your levels of thinking. And I understand that the natural question is, where did I come up with this? So I've done a lot of studying when it comes to developmental theory, developmental psychology, integral theory, and a whole bunch of different models of psychological development, skill development, and many different areas. And this is my theory on how the best players develop and how they think the game. This is what I've seen, and these are my estimates. These are my beliefs. You can take them, you can apply them, you can try them out. If you think they work, they help you, awesome. If they don't, all good. But the goal is just to actually create tools and systems and make these ways of thinking accessible to more players, because a lot of players never really get taught how to think this way, and it limits how far they can develop. So coming back to the levels of thinking or awareness, you have the first level, which is info-aware. Info-aware is basically when you're aware that there is information available. You basically realize, I can go on Instagram, I can go on TikTok, I can go and search things up, and there is going to be info, there's going to be knowledge out there. This is great. It's important for players to go through this stage, to become info-aware, because you want to collect a lot of data, you want to collect knowledge. But the mistake players make here is you get way too caught up in thinking, if I watch enough film, if I see enough information, I'm going to get better. And this is when you become like an armchair quarterback, as people call it, where you spend so much time thinking about the game, but you never actually apply it. And what ends up happening is you'll have players who are essentially learning a ton of information consciously, but subconsciously nothing changes. And what you have to realize is that basically the conscious mind is only about 5% of what's actually going on in your brain. When you play a game, when you are performing on the ice, this is 95%. This is 95% of what's actually being processed. There's a general consensus that somewhere in the range of about 50 bits of information are processed consciously in your mind, and there's something like 2 million bits are processed subconsciously. So if you think about how powerful this is, you could even argue that it's not even a 5% versus 95. You could argue that it's like 0.1% versus 99.9%, something like that. That's the argument. That's the claim. So you have to think about the level of learning that you're doing. If you're spending all of your time in this info-aware stage, what you're essentially saying is, most of the things I'm learning are just remaining in this conscious mind. They're never actually downloading into the subconscious. They're never downloading and becoming part of the mental software or operating system that is essentially your instincts, the things you do automatically. This is why you know something and you can get off the ice after a shift and say, man, I knew I should have made that play, but I didn't. The reason you didn't is because you didn't actually download that pattern into your subconscious mind. So you can consciously say it 10 million times, I should make this play, I should make that play. But it's not going to happen if you don't make an actual shift in your software, in your instincts. Now, the next stage that players start to move into is they become action aware. Now, action aware is typically where most players end up staying. They end up getting stalled out somewhere between info-aware, action-aware, and effort-aware, so somewhere in these three stages here. Action-aware is basically when you start trying stuff. This is when you start doing a lot. You actually do things and you say, well, if I go out and stick handle once in a while, if I go on the ice in a fair amount, if I do things, stuff starts to happen. And this is a pretty obvious shift. It's pretty obvious when you go from info aware, it's I know what to do, to I do it. And then the next core stage that players go through is that then they become effort aware. What they realize is that if they not just take action, they don't just do things, but they take a lot of action. They put a lot of effort and energy and high quality energy into what they're doing. Then they start to notice, ooh, I have more success. I start to build, I start to grow. So if you start to do that, you're like, okay, cool, I'm working hard. This is where you get basically like the meathead mentality that most of the world operates in most areas. They say like grind, work, hard, do more, do more. The thing with this stage is that if you never leave this stage, you are probably never going to be a top liner at a relatively high level because you're not going to be skilled enough to be able to dominate. And now this will work for some players because they have great natural ability. They're naturally great, so it's not that big of a deal for them. It's actually quite easy for them to make a jump and keep progressing because if you take somebody like a Wayne Gretzky or McDavid or somebody and just say work really hard, then yeah, they will naturally get better. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that for someone like McDavid, he had people who developed him with clear intention. They were very intentional about how they developed him, giving him tons of skills work, giving him clear actions that were higher leverage. And so leverage aware is where I would consider people cross into basically phase 2 of development. They go from just being somebody who's thinking actions and work or just information is important. This is when a player in the offseason realizes the quality of the work. If I work smarter, if I do better things, I get better results. This is when you start to go to specialists, whether it's a physical trainer, whether it's a mental trainer, whether it's somebody who can help you with your mechanics and skills, whether it's somebody who can help you develop your hockey IQ and start making better decisions on the ice. This stage is where players come from when they want to work with me or myself or some of our other coaches, whether it's IQ coaching, whether it's other components of what we do. This is where players essentially start to come to us. They realize, okay, I want to cross over this threshold. I don't want to be in this lower stage development anymore. I want to get into the higher stages of development. I want to start to do better things. I want to be more effective with my time. And if you want to be a better player and you want to start to learn how to apply leverage to your mental game this offseason, you want to apply it to your hockey IQ, you want to apply it to every area, then feel free, shoot me a message. You can comment below. You can also just click the links down below. That's probably the easiest. Just click the links. There'll be a link that'll just take you over to our free training where you can learn more about this stuff. And you can also check it out, apply, book a call with one of our team members, have a conversation, see if we can help you. It's free. It's kind of a no-brainer, win-win, because we'll either give you some free stuff to help you out or you'll actually get better. So like kind of a no-brainer. But what we're trying to do when we get on that call is understand what stage are you in, where are you kind of stalled out, and can we help you? And a lot of times where players get stalled out is that they're kind of in this stage of I've been trying hard, I've been trying lots of stuff, I'm aware of the tools out there, generally speaking, but they don't start to think about how to apply leverage to the performance pillars. Now, what I mean by the performance pillars is you want to think of as kind of two distinct pieces. So you have the mind and you have the body. Why this is important, why this matters so much is because most players spend so much time on the physical side of the game. They do the physical workouts, they do conditioning, they go and skate with skills coaches, they work on all these things, but then they never change their mental software. They never apply leverage to the one thing that matters so much because the body is basically, you can think of the body like a race car. It's the actual car itself. You can think of the mind like the driver of that car. If the mind is, let's say, like a 1 out of 10 ability and the body is a 10 out of 10 ability, it'll be like having a baby in the driver's seat. It doesn't matter how bad you want it. You'll never be able to progress as far as you possibly could if you had a 10 out of 10. Right? And this is where you start to see a player, when you see somebody who they're not really that skilled, they're not like super well conditioned, but they still perform well. It's because something about their software is better. If you look at like an Alex Ovechkin, I think he has really good mechanical ability. I think he naturally is gifted with pretty solid physical ability in terms of he's big, he's strong, he's powerful. But most of where his game comes from is he's very smart at finding the right areas. He's very smart at making the right decisions at the right time. He's very confident in himself. He knows what to do. So all of these pieces come together. Right? He is a very high leverage player in that sense, and he could probably be even higher leverage if he had been maybe a little more serious when it came to physical stuff. He probably could have been a little bit better mechanically too. But again, like who am I to judge? He's the best goal scorer ever. But this is just thinking about what it takes to be a great player. And when you start to think, how can I apply leverage to myself? The leverage we're looking for really comes from getting into the specifics and figuring out, am I struggling to get into flow consistently, trust myself, believe in myself? Do I panic with the puck? If that's the issue, then mental ability is a huge piece. If you're struggling with, I can't make decisions, I can't take in the right info, I struggle with the right decision, I can't generate the outcomes I want, then that's the issue. If I don't have the body to carry out what I want it to carry out, then that's the issue. Then you can ask yourself, well, mechanically, am I moving efficiently? Am I trying really hard, but I'm just not moving efficiently on the ice? Well, then it's a mechanical ability issue, right? This should start to make you realize, oh, okay, once I start to apply leverage, I start to get very intentional about that, I can really take control of my game. Now, the next place we want to go is systems-aware thinking. Systems-aware thinking is when you realize that when you combine all of the different training components and you start to apply leverage to all of them strategically, things start to change faster. This is what it looks like when you start to integrate and create an integrated system. All of the pieces of your system all make sense together. This is a big piece of what we do. Much of what we do as coaches in the identity shift model and in all of our different programs is that we really help players with the mental game. We help them with mental ability, mental skills, hockey IQ ability, hockey IQ skills, and then help them be strategic about working with the right people in each of these areas, deciding on what mechanics to build, what kind of physical ability is lacking, where they need to go, what they need to do. But then we come back and say, well, how are we using these things? If you have a physical trainer, you have a skills trainer, do you have somebody who's helping you with the mind and to be strategic about that? And then this strategic thinking then connects back over to these things. You want to make sure that all of these are integrated together into an integral system. If they're not, then you're kind of fragmented and you're saying, okay, I'm trying to communicate with this side, like my mental coach is saying this thing, then my skills coach tells me to do something different, then my hockey coach in my actual team tells me this, and now nothing makes sense. Think of ourselves more as overall performance coaches where we integrate pieces together, help you figure out what's lacking, and we're really thinking in this kind of higher level thinking of how does the whole system work? How do all the pieces connect? And in your off season, you want to make sure all the pieces connect. You don't just want to work on one component. Don't get stuck in lower level thinking of just applying leverage. You need to apply leverage to the whole system. Become great mechanically. Become very, very strong, jacked, powerful, well-conditioned, durable, and become very smart, make very high quality decisions, become very smart and intelligent on the ice, and then become very confident, believe in yourself, trust in your ability, get into flow state, and be that loose, relaxed player, but also with that edge and that intensity that you need. You play your style, you find your identity, right? All of this is about building your game, but you can't do that if you don't think at a high enough level to do it, or you need somebody to come in and step in, take control, and help you do that. I'm a big believer in the player and the development coach should both do that together. If you look at the best players in the world, Darryl Belfry, working with Austin Matthews, Patrick Kane, Crosby, Quinn Hughes, McKinnon. He's working with all these guys and he's helping them strategically decide where to put their energy, why to put their energy in a certain place. And this is what I'm trying to help you do is think about where to put your energy. What type of player do you need to be? What type of decisions do you need to make on the ice? And what abilities do you need out of these abilities? What's lacking in you that's preventing you from making the types of decisions you want to make? Or do you not know what decisions you want to make in the first place because you haven't figured out what's my identity, right? Which comes back to the mental ability side of it. So I'm just a firm believer at you can't just pick one of these and put all your energy into it. You have to pick all four and then connect them together into a system. And then when you connect it all into a system, you then become time aware. Time aware thinking is where the best coaches thrive. It's where they separate themselves from other coaches. And I like to think we do a pretty good job of it. What I mean by this is somebody who understands periodization, somebody who understands patience, somebody who understands that everything's not going to work all at once. There was a Kobe quote that I loved where he said, "You're not trying to make a quantum leap in your game. You're trying to make consistent, solid improvement over and over and over again." When you make that consistent improvement, when you consistently level up and not just try to make a quantum leap in the offseason, you get to the offseason and you're 20% better than you were before. You're not trying to gain 100% development. You're not trying to double your ability. You're trying to make a solid overall gain in your ability. And you have to apply information. You have to be aware of what info do I need. You got to take the right actions. You got to take just action in general. You got to get off the couch. Don't be a lazy ass. Actually go do stuff. Then you got to become effort aware. Once your effort is there, once you're actually being willing to work as a baseline, right? Think of effort aware as like the baseline. You're working as hard as you can. Then you start to apply leverage to that. You do better things with your effort, so you get more energy out of each. You get more benefit out of each bit of energy you put in, out of every calorie you put in, if you want to think of like energy in terms of the calories your body has. And then you want to start to apply leverage to the whole system, make sure the whole system works together and is pushing in the same direction. All rowers are rowing the same way. And then finally, you want to figure out time and strategically, am I headed in the right direction? Am I able to trust in that direction? Do I have a clear plan? And can I just enjoy it? Can I be present to it? If you look at a lot of great players, a lot of what they're also able to do is not stress themselves out all the time. Be able to relax, let go of the cortisol, let go of all the stress you feel, because if you're constantly high stress, high cortisol, you're going to be like a prey animal. Prey animals struggle because their body's constantly in fight or flight and they're fighting to survive. They're scared all the time. They don't sleep well. They're always jumpy. Notice how you can be like that. And that's probably because you're at a lower level of thinking. And we'll start to break this down in more detail and talk about some of these concepts, the different levels of consciousness, essentially, and how these connect back to all these things. We'll also talk about the skill continuum and what that looks like in future. And so we'll also talk more about the levels of consciousness and how this connects to everything we're talking about and how you want to move up the levels of consciousness, start to think like a great player on a kind of subconscious level. This is more like a spiritual component of hockey development, which we'll break down in the future. We'll talk more about the skill continuum and how to develop and how to think about developing skills. We'll also break down more about the conscious and subconscious mind. So again, make sure to subscribe to all this stuff. We'll also be breaking down, helping you understand how to think about this. Is like the ultimate diagram of how the whole hockey world really works at a base level. It's a little complicated, so we're not going to break it down today. But fundamentally, we just want to become aware of where you are thinking on here. You want to become a higher level thinker. You want to really get crystal clear on what stage are you in. Are you at stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? And are you applying it to all areas of your game, or are you applying high thinking to only some? Start to really dig deep into that. And then from there, ask yourself fundamentally, have you crossed from level 1 to level 2? Have you crossed that threshold from just effort to leverage? And if you haven't, start to think about how you can apply leverage to your game. How can you get more back for what you put in? That's what great investors do in business. That's what great athletes do in all areas of sport. If you want to be a great hockey player, you want to have an awesome offseason, you got to apply leverage and be a higher level thinker. Again, if you want help doing this, if you are a parent and you want your son or daughter to get help doing this and think at a higher level, these are things I wish I understood. I wish I got it. I wish somebody had just taught me this stuff early on. So that's why I'm making it available to more players. So if you need help, you can click the links below. You can check it out. And you can hop on a call with my team and we'll just break it down for you and tell you, do we think we can help you? And if not, we'll say, hey, we can't. If we think there's some resources you can check out, go ahead, check them out. We got free training to take you through all this and start applying a lot of these tools, develop a mental game, apply leverage to your off-season. We have a whole off-season module breaking things down there too. That should give you enough to work with. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being willing to listen to this. If you're a crazy enough hockey player to listen to this, I'm sure you're going to love hopping on a call with us and just talking through things. We're not going to put pressure on you to buy anything. Just see if we can help you, and then we'll go from there. So have a great week. Can't wait to help you this off-season. Stay tuned for more videos. Talk to you soon. Bye.